We're now the biggest party in the European Parliament. But we've got much bigger, bolder ambitions. We can find £200 billion by just not doing three things. We're not going to do HS2. The second thing we're not going to do, we're not going to send £39 billion overseas to a bunch of bungling bureaucrats in Brussels. And the third thing we're not going to do is we're not going to send 50% of the bloated, wasteful foreign aid budget overseas.
Welcome to the stage, Richard Tice.
Well, that's some welcome. Everyone's on message. Thank you very much. People have clearly summered well. It's incredible. Here we are, over 500 prospective parliamentary candidates for the forthcoming general election. What is absolutely clear we've got signs, we've got flags, there's going to be a general election, and we are ready. In fact, I think I can confidently predict we're more ready than any other political party. We're going to be ready for whatever parliamentary games Westminster and those politicians throw at us. It's incredible to think it's only 19 weeks ago that we launched the Brexit Party. I have to say it feels a bit longer. 19 weeks ago, in a family-run factory in Coventry, we launched our first event with our first 6 MEPs. 6 weeks later, we'd won a national election. We were the largest, and still are, the largest party in the European Parliament, although, of course, we don't want to be there for very long. And we had a simple slogan: change politics for good. And after that success in that election, the first thing that happened was, thankfully, we got rid of the worst Prime Minister this country has ever seen. And that meant that we also got rid of the worst, least talented cabinet this country has ever seen. So I think we can reasonably say we have started to change politics for good. Just imagine if we hadn't set up. Theresa May would still be Prime Minister, heaven forbid. That cabinet would still be there, heaven forbid. And we'd probably now be in the middle of a second referendum campaign. But thankfully, the world has changed. We have moved on. After the European elections, we had our big vision rally, some of which you saw on the screen there. And we announced some of our early policies. And I think some of them were quite popular, judging by your applause earlier. It's interesting, isn't it? Imitation is a form of flattery. And the Tories, of course, have basically copied almost everything we announced. We announced we'd scrap HS2, and sure enough, the Tories are having a review with the possibility of scrapping HS2. We said we're not going to pay 39 billion quid of taxpayers' cash. And now the Tories are talking about not spending as much, not sending over that 39 billion pounds. We said we wanted to invest in the regions, in the areas that have been left behind. And sure enough, Boris, in his leadership campaign, talked about investing in the regions. We said we wanted to invest in broadband, in digital infrastructure. And sure enough, the Tories are now talking about the same. We talked about an online sales tax to help protect the high street. And sure enough, the Tories are talking about the same. In fact, so bereft of their own ideas, they've even resorted to copying our own videos. So there's more policies coming, but that, of course, is why we mustn't fire all the policy bullets in one go. We need to hold them back, and we need to release them at the right moment. Because what is clear is that actually we've got the right common sense policies that are appropriate for this country. Now, I want to say a huge thank you to all of you here today. I know some have been delayed by trains and things, but you have shown great optimism in the future of our country after a clean break Brexit. That is the way that we maximise the opportunities, and you here share that belief that Nigel and I have. I want to thank you also for your courage. Most of you have never stood for public office. Let me tell you, there'll be some good days and there'll be some tough days. There'll be some highs and lows. And because the establishment are petrified of us, they're petrified of our success, they're terrified that actually we're on the right track, that actually democracy means something. And so, of course, they will do anything to talk us down. And that means abuse, vitriol. You know, I'm sure you've had some difficult discussions with friends, family. So I want to say a huge thank you to all of you for the courage to stand as a prospective candidate for the Brexit Party. Now, thank you. And we've got, you know, it's incredible. People, successful, achievers, doers, thinkers, people from all walks of life. Real people who've done real jobs, as opposed to pretty perfect policy wonks in Westminster. And we've got a short video. We've got a short video just talking about some of the candidates and why they're standing.
In just a few months, the Brexit Party has some amazing achievements. We've reset the political agenda, got rid of a hopeless Prime Minister, and made the option of a clean break Brexit the most popular one in the country. But now we face our biggest challenge, to fight a general election across the entire United Kingdom. And we are ready.
54% of people of Leicester East feel like they don't have a voice. So I'm here to give them that voice. There's a lot of people that I've spoken to that said they're never going to vote again, because how can you trust the political system now? People just want common sense, people like them representing them, and that's where the Brexit Party is firmly positioning itself. It's just a party of regular people like myself who want to get involved because we care, and then make sure that this sort of betrayal can never happen again.
People voted for something completely new, you know, voted to go out into the unknown and try something completely different and reclaim power back. We all have a stake in it, and I'm one of those people.
Even though I'm an ordinary person on Exmoor, running the Exmoor Pony Project, living an ordinary life, I just felt that I had to be part of it. We've stepped up because we simply have to defend and safeguard our democracy, and we're here.
From what I've seen, a lot of the Brexit PPCs now are just from normal backgrounds, just working class people who care about people as well.
I think there's a lot of commonality between a politician and a doctor. Consultation always begins with listening. You listen to what the person has to say, take on board, and then help them and make them realise that actually they've got control. They've got the power to decide their future and what to do and what not to do, and they're not helpless.
I'm just a normal, hard-working, working class person, but I think the taxi driving has given me an insight of how people live, and you get to learn their issues because you become their agony aunt to tell the taxi driver everything.
I am ready.
I'm ready.
I am ready.
I'm definitely ready.
I'm ready.
We have an extraordinary cross-section of people from every walk of life making a stand for democracy. They will be our candidates at the forthcoming general election, and we are ready.
So, the other people, there's some other people, really important people I just want to thank, because, you know, to get over 500 approved candidates requires a huge amount of energy, hard work. We had 3,000 applications reviewed separately by 2 people. We did over 1,400 interviews with 2 people, over 600 approved candidates, and that required incredible hard work, effort, energy, enthusiasm, smiles. And that team was incredibly led by Leslie, AJ, and Toby, and I'd just like to give them a huge thanks. There are, of course, many, many other people, too numerous to thank, but it's fair to say we've been pretty busy during August. So we're geared up, we're ready. In September, we've got our regional conference tour all over the country, and hopefully all of you will be there. Bring your friends, your family, activists, supporters, make sure they sign up. We'll be announcing more policies at those events. We have a vital role now. This is a truly seismic moment in history. The big question, of course, is, can we trust Boris? We must not let him sell this country down the river by reheating, rehashing, and repackaging the worst deal in history, that dreadful withdrawal treaty. And there is, of course, it's easy to forget. We've all enjoyed the summer. It's easy to forget just how bad that deal really is. Indeed, when I was re-looking at it last week, it actually made us angry how people could think that that is a good deal for this country. And there is no person better to remind us just what a shocking deal it is than the person who has fought for Brexit courageously. He enjoys breakfast as well. But there's no person who has fought courageously throughout the last 25 plus years to ensure a proper Brexit than our leader. And before we welcome Nigel to the stage, let's just see him on the video.
There are many, many Labour seats in which we will now be the challengers, and let's put them on notice today. We are getting ready because we stand up for the patriotic values of millions of people in this country, and we stand up for those 5 million Labour voters who voted Brexit, who've now been betrayed by their own party, as indeed the country has been by the Conservative Party. We are getting ready, we are serious, we are not going away, we mean business, and we will change politics for good. Good morning, Brexit Party. It's extraordinary to think that back in March of this year, all seemed lost from a Brexit perspective. We had a Labour and Conservative Party, both of whom were happy not to take us out of the European Union. We had many of the 500 MPs who'd voted for Article 50, who'd reneged on their promise. And the talk was that not only were we not leaving the European Union, but we were to face a second referendum. And I felt that something absolutely fundamental had broken. Trust in politics, trust in our entire political system, and that is why I founded the Brexit Party, to restore that faith. And what was remarkable in that 6-week campaign, through some process of alchemy, we managed to turn all of that anger that was out there in this country into optimism and hope. We made people begin to realise that actually Brexit was going to happen because the British people have made up their minds and we will not be changing it. And I think we've got one or two achievements we can be rather proud of. After all, it was our rise and success that got rid of the worst and most duplicitous Prime Minister in British history. I think we pretty much guaranteed that her successor would be a leading Brexiteer. Indeed, if we hadn't fought those elections, I suspect Mrs May would still be there. But more important than that, what we've done already is we have completely reset the political agenda in this country. So much so that a clean break Brexit on the 31st of October is now by far the most popular option in this country. But now we face an even bigger challenge. My guess is there is a better than 50% chance that we'll face a general election in the autumn. But whether we do or not, it is a pretty extraordinary achievement for a party of 19 weeks standing that we have over 500 of you in this room today who have been through vetting and will be candidates for us, prospective parliamentary candidates for us at the next general election, and that there are 635 of you on our approved list. It is an extraordinary achievement. Our team have done well. We've spent the summer preparing for this moment, and we are ready. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you sure you're ready? And boy, we need to be, because I have a feeling that just a few weeks into his premiership, Boris is going off the rails. Oh, I know, it all started brilliantly, didn't it? It all started brilliantly. In fact, as Richard has said already, he pretty much aped every single word and phrase that we used in that campaign. I heard Nicky Morgan this morning talking about telephone connectivity. And I've no doubt there'll be things that we say today that you'll hear within 48 hours. But for all the headlines, and by the way, I'm pleased that Boris Johnson has brought some energy to that job. I'm pleased that Boris Johnson has brought some optimism to that job. I'm pleased that Boris Johnson is saying we will leave on the 31st of October, do or die. The trouble is, we've heard it all before. Because Mrs. May impressed me, I have to say, at her Lancaster House speech. She then went on to tell us 108 times that we would be leaving on the 29th of March. And I have a little bit of a difficulty with Boris, and it's this. When the Chequers Agreement led to the withdrawal agreement, or should we call it its proper name, the new European Treaty, because that is what it is. That is what it is. And Boris Johnson, in his Telegraph column, wrote over and over how we would become a slave state, a vassal state. He said it was the most disastrous deal and the worst thing that could ever happen to our country. Yes, it's true, he talked about the backstop, but he didn't just talk about that. He talked about the deal in its entirety and the fact that once we'd signed it, under the political declaration, there was nothing the European Union ever had to give us back. No guarantees about our future relationship is what Boris said, and yet, in his letter to Donald Tusk last Monday, Boris says that achieving a deal is our highest priority. He says a withdrawal agreement in that letter without the backstop would be satisfactory. Well, I suppose to him it would, because despite all the language condemning the withdrawal agreement, despite the fact that twice he voted against it, you'll never guess what happened the third time it came back to Parliament. He voted for it. And that raises with me a very big question. Can you trust Boris Johnson on this issue? Can you trust the Conservative Party on this issue? You see, even without the backstop, this is the worst deal in history. Not only will it cost us £39 billion, but it would lead us into a transition period that has the option of being extended. So the transition period, if this deal were to pass, would go on until 2022. Despite all the fine words, it would leave us under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice for a minimum period of 8 years. And when I campaigned for 25 years in the run-up to the 23rd of June 2016, saying we want our country back, I didn't do it so that foreign judges could overrule laws made in this country. It's unacceptable. And I thought from the very beginning that the acid test of Brexit was, would we take back what is rightfully ours? Would we take back our territorial waters, the management of the fish stock and conservation within them, and hand back to the British fishing industry the chance for they and our coastal communities to survive. And this withdrawal agreement does not take back our territorial waters, and for that it is unacceptable. And of course, this withdrawal agreement binds us in the future to EU state aid rules. So we would not be able, as we're not now, to make strategic decisions about industry in this country. And I can think of no better example of this than the tragedy that is befalling British Steel, mainly because of uncontrolled exports coming in from China, selling steel way below their cost of production, and the impotence of the British government to stand up and defend what is, after all, a strategic industry. Under this withdrawal agreement, we would not be able to stand up for British Steel, and that makes it unacceptable. And this withdrawal agreement and the attached political declaration make a pledge to build on the customs partnership that already exists. I cannot for the life of me see, if we were to pass this agreement, I cannot for the life of me see that we would ever truly be able to leave the customs union. And that makes it perhaps the most unacceptable part of this whole withdrawal agreement, even without the backstop. And as Boris said, the first two times when he voted against it, it does not commit the European Union to having to give us anything in return in the future. And yet, this is now his highest priority. And you may have noticed there's been a change of language. Angela Merkel saying find an alternative. Donald Tusk saying find an alternative. Even Mr. Macron being pleasant towards the British for a few seconds at least. And I think Boris thinks that if he can get the backstop amended, he can put it to Parliament, and he thinks that the ERG and many others will fall into line for the sake of the party. Well, Boris, you talked about do or die, about leaving the European Union on the 31st of October. And I would say to you, deliver or politically die, because I tell you this, any attempt, if he carries on with this course, any attempt to put this withdrawal agreement back, and if he thinks he can then put that to a general election, either shortly before or after the 31st of October, I want to make this pledge from the Brexit Party. The withdrawal agreement is not Brexit. The withdrawal agreement is a betrayal of what 17.4 million people voted for, and if you go with the withdrawal agreement, if, Mr. Johnson, you insist on the withdrawal agreement, we will fight you in every single seat up and down the length and breadth of the United Kingdom. Are you ready? I think you are. But of course, there's another possibility, because Boris Johnson always likes to prepare two different texts, as we well know. There is the possibility that he won't get what he wants from Brussels. The possibility that the ERG will hold firm and that the numbers in Parliament won't be sufficient to get this dreaded deal through, then, well, he has another choice. He could proceed to what they call no deal. They call it no deal to frighten us. Indeed, at 2 o'clock this afternoon, just up the street, Jeremy Corbyn is holding a conference. Oh, they'll all be there. The Liberal Democrats will be there. The Labour Party will be there. The Scottish Nationalists will be there. The Green Party will be there. Plaid Cymru will be there. And the leader of the dynamic Change UK Party, Anna Soubry, will be there. So they want to stop no deal. They want to bring a motion of confidence on the Prime Minister. I suspect that they are going to fail. And they are very out of touch with public opinion. Frankly, given where we are, no deal is the best deal. It's the only acceptable deal. But let's call it what it really is. It is a clean break Brexit that would make this country an independent, sovereign, democratic nation, and that is what we in the Brexit Party want. Thank you. Thank you. So let me be clear. If Boris Johnson was to summon up the courage to lead this country towards a clean break Brexit on the 31st of October, and if the only means of achieving that was calling a general election, which I frankly suspect that it would be, in those circumstances, if Boris Johnson is prepared to do the right thing to win our independence, then we are prepared to do the right thing, and we would put country before party, and we would do it every time. We do it every time. No, we would be prepared in those circumstances to help him, to work with him. Perhaps, I don't know, in the form of a non-aggression pact at the election. You see, the truth is, even if Boris went down that route, the Conservative Party on their own have lost so much trust in this country that the only way they can do it, the only way they could win a workable majority to get this country free is with our help and support. We will not get a genuine Brexit without the Brexit Party being involved, and we are ready to play our part in the destiny of this country. In fact, the truth of it is, the Remain side may have lots of political parties, but for the Leave side, a Johnson government committed to doing the right thing and the Brexit Party working in tandem would be unstoppable, would deliver a big parliamentary majority, and would get this country free. But I tell you what, Her Majesty's opposition is not now a party we could ever consider working with in any way at all. The Labour Party have become a Remain second referendum party, with a few noble exceptions on their backbenches. The Labour Party have now wholesale betrayed 5 million Labour voting Brexiteers, and I say to all those Labour voters out there, the Brexit Party is now the party for you. You can look at areas of the United Kingdom like South Wales, the Midlands. I better cast it a bit broader. The whole of the north of England. You can look at areas like that and you can see in constituency after constituency places in which people voted Leave who are now represented by Remain members of Parliament. And these clearly are going to be our main target seats in any general election that comes this year or in the years to come. The Labour Party today is more about Islington than is Loin. I thought the Welsh were good at making noise. Thank you. It is more a party of Hampstead than Huddersfield. And it is indeed a party that seems to represent an upper middle class globalist type based in London and to have lost all touch with its patriotic working roots. We understand the concerns of those people. We will be their champions. And talking of people, the Brexit Party's motivation is to deliver on that historic referendum result back in 2016. We want an independent, proud, united kingdom. And we've got people assembled here today from every walk of life, from nurses to rear admirals, from doctors to decorated soldiers, from taxi drivers to entrepreneurs. Some of you formerly in the Labour Party, some of you formerly in the Conservative Party, many of you never part of any political party before. But what has motivated you to get involved in politics is that you have lost trust in our career political class and believe that it's time for ordinary, decent people to make a stand for democracy, to make sure we take back control of our country. And I think when news gets out from this hall today of who you are and the fact there's 635 of you on the approved candidates list, I rather hope that it begins to concentrate some minds half a mile across the road in Westminster. We believe in Britain, don't we? Yeah. We believe in democracy. Yeah. We believe that unless the referendum result is delivered, there will be irretrievable harm done to trust and democracy in this country. And we're going to fight, aren't we? Yeah. Without the Brexit Party, there will be no meaningful Brexit. And whilst there are many other things we'll talk about in a general election campaign, be it political reform, the failure of our education system towards so many of our young people, the urgent need for large-scale modernisation and infrastructure around this country. Whilst all of those things are important, Brexit is the defining political issue of our age. And whatever comes, whenever it comes, the simple message that comes out from this hall today: you've got it, you're ahead of me. Can you all hold up your placards, please? Our simple message is this: we are ready! Thank you very much indeed, everybody.
Brilliant.
Get the band to a bit.
Do you want a glass?
I'll get
You head off. Yeah. So, isn't it good news to know that he hasn't lost his touch? Fired up, warmed up after the summer and ready for action. As is our next speaker, one of our MEPs, and she's had an interesting and varied career with a number of different phases to it. Her first phase, what I call her sort of pilot course, was trying things out as a Member of Parliament with the Conservative Party. She then realised that actually there were greater things out there, and she wanted to help teach us how to dance. And she embarked on a very successful TV career. Before the third phase of her career, I would definitely say her most important phase, which is to come and help the Brexit Party. And she was a huge, huge asset during the European campaign. Her wisdom, her knowledge, her experience was absolutely invaluable then and will continue to be so. Because, you know, when you're in politics for so long, you know all the tricks. You know the games that they play. You know what goes on in the back rooms. You know who you can trust and who you can't trust. And so we're incredibly lucky that we have Anne as part of our team. And before we welcome her to the stage, let's just remind ourselves of her in action.
Former Conservative Minister Anne Widdecombe has announced that she will stand for Nigel Farage's Brexit party.
Lifelong Conservative Anne Widdecombe has today announced that she is coming out of retirement.
The whole nation is fed up to the back teeth and just wants a resolution.
It isn't just the 17.4 million who have been betrayed. It is also generations to come who, if they have their way, will not grow up in an independent, self-governing country.
The national good comes first, and that's what everybody out there is saying, and what the clothiers in Parliament just aren't hearing. If we get worn down, if we can't get a deal, then just call the whole thing off. No.
A Parliament full of cowards. A Parliament that is against democracy. A Parliament that believes that its will is more important than the will of the people.
I shall focus on one thing: delivering what the people voted for.
Please welcome to the stage, Anne Widdecombe.
Are you? Yes. Ready to fight, are you? Yes. That's not good enough. Are you ready to win? Yes. Because that's what this is all about. You are prospective candidates for a general election. And it's no good going into a general election to manage something that is just a halfway measure. We fight to win. And it's important that we know why we are trying to win and what we are trying to achieve. And everybody in this room who has signed up to fight for this party is fighting for democracy itself. You're not just fighting for those who voted leave. You are fighting for everybody, because everybody in this country expects to be governed by a parliament that is itself governed by the will of the people. And if they get away with it this time, they will go on getting away with it. If they are able to stand up in Parliament and in the teeth of the decision that was taken in 2016 and in the teeth of all the promises that they made in their manifestos, if they are able to stand up in Parliament and say, we are going to overturn the result of that referendum, we are not going to implement it. If they are able to say that and then get re-elected, that is bad news for Britain for decades to come. That is the fight that we are all engaged in, to restore proper democracy and to make sure that Parliament knows its place. And its place is delivering what the British people want, not thwarting what the British people have clearly said they want. Now, if there is a general election, and Boris actually promises a clean break Brexit, then every single member of the Conservative Party, regardless of what they have been saying up till now, should be required to state clearly to their constituents that they will vote for that no-deal Brexit. Every single one of them, Boris, no exceptions. Now, if the other side want to stand for Remain, at least we know exactly where to take the fight. But I don't want to be fighting with a divided army, some of whom are behind the general and others of whom are simply saying, well, wait till the election's over and then we can go back to where we were before. They must not go back to where they are now. And as I have said before, if they won't make sure that Britain leaves, we will make sure that they leave. And that's where you all come in. You're the ones on the ground who are going to be making sure that those who have stood against the will of the British people, who have actually ratted on their own manifesto promises, that those people will never see the inside of Westminster again. Instead, we'll be at Westminster. You'll be at Westminster. And when we are there, we will make sure that Parliament is run on democratic lines, that the will of the people is implemented, that politicians tell the truth and don't shilly-shally, and above all, that Britain regains its sovereignty, its independence, its freedom to do as Britain wants, not what Europe tells us we should be doing. Travelling up and down the country during the European parliamentary elections, I was asking people various questions. And one of them was, could we stay in the EU and control our own laws? And another was, could we stay in the EU and control our own borders? And another was, could we stay in the EU and control our own trade deals? And the answer to that was no. But now let me ask you a different question. Can we control our own laws, borders and trade deals if Boris Johnson gives us a weakened version of the May deal? No. And Nigel has explained very eloquently this morning that there is far more danger to the May deal than is exemplified by the backstop. And your job, in whatever constituencies that you have been assigned to, is to press and to harry the sitting Member of Parliament as to whether he or she believes that any version of the May deal is good for Britain. And above all, we need to force Boris Johnson to say whether he now only wants changes to the backstop or whether he really wants to change the May deal. And if he says that the backstop, as he appears to have said in a letter, that the backstop is the only outstanding issue, then quite frankly, we are back to where we were with Theresa May. Oh yes, he does want to leave. Oh yes, he is much more charismatic than Mrs. May. Oh yes, he has taken a real air of determination into the EU. Oh yes, even Macron has blinked. All that is true. But if what he gives us is the May deal, we might as well have stayed with Theresa May. She was a bad Prime Minister for this country, but her time in office was limited. This deal is bad for this country, and once signed, it won't be limited. And that is what this campaign will be about. We have to make sure that we have genuine independence, that we leave without any deal, and then negotiate a future relationship from a position of power, not on our knees. Why should we ever have been on our knees to the EU? We're the world's 5th largest economy. What are we scared of? They owe their very freedom to us. We should be proud. And the only way that we're going to get them to take us seriously and to start negotiating in any meaningful way, the only way we're going to get them to treat us as equals is if we are equal, by which I mean no longer part of their bloc, but a sovereign, a truly sovereign state making its own deals, whether trade deals or about anything else. That is how we will finally get a future relationship with them, which is not that of master and servant. Now, as I said, it's down to you. Yes, Nigel and Richard and I and others, we will be campaigning up and down the country when the time comes, but it's down to you. It always is down to you. And I know that from 20 years' experience in Westminster as a member of a party that I'm now ashamed even to mention. And I know it's the people on the ground who make the difference. And not just the candidates, before that, the prospective candidates, not just them. It is all the people who will be helping you. They are the heroes of any campaign. And whatever you do between now and any general election, build a team, a real team, because you won't be able to do it all. You may be in one place, but you want lots of other people in those places where you are not at that time. So build a team, and it will be a winning team. We will play great cricket. This is not a team that is going to bat half-heartedly. It is not a team that is going to go into the fight thinking, oh dear, well, I hope I make a good showing. No, no, no. You go into that fight saying, I am going to win. So what I'm asking you today is not whether you're ready to fight, I know that, but are you truly, really, in your very gut, ready to win? Are you ready? They are ready.
They're ready. Isn't she great? She is truly fantastic, an inspirational speaker, someone who has so much experience, so much wisdom, so much knowledge, as I said before, and it really comes through then. That inspiration, that advice is absolutely invaluable. Remember it every single minute, hour of every day during the inevitable campaign that we think is going to start very shortly. So we're going to have a press questions and answers short now. I'm hoping that Nigel is ready to come back to answer those. Gwen, is our leader ready for action? All of which are very important indeed. It's looking like 5 minutes is being waved at the back, or 5 seconds, probably 5 minutes. Before that, in terms of the way the rest of the day is going to work, so we're going to do a press conference with some questions from members of the press. We're then going to have some words of wisdom from some of the other MEPs who have been with the party since the beginning, from Jake Pugh. We're then going to hear from Matthew Patton and from John Longworth. And then we'll have lunch. After lunch, we're going to have a huge, massive, enthusiastic, smiling team photograph before we move on to the rest of the day. Now, I think we've got our leader back to come down and hopefully receive some questions from members of the press. So, right. Who have we got? Who's up first? Don't be shy from the press. Any questions? Someone, I can just about see your hand raised. If you give us your name and which organisation you represent and who you'd direct your question to.
I'm George Ryan from PA. This is for Mr. Farage. You speak of a non-aggression pact with the Conservative Party. Have you reached out to the party and had conversations with the leadership about this? And are these happening at the highest level?
No, we've been busy getting ourselves organised. We've been quite low profile as a party over the course of the last few weeks. That's because we've been getting this fine array of men and women together, and the message from today is very clear. We are ready, and as far as the Conservatives are concerned, well, I suppose we could be their worst enemy, or in some ways, their best friend. It all depends what they do. What I do know is this. If I stood up today and said, it's all been jolly good fun, thank you very much, we're closing down, the chances of a clean break Brexit would hover at around about 0. The Conservative Party never do this on their own. You know, it was Jimmy Goldsmith that got them to pledge to hold a referendum before taking us into the euro. It was UKIP that got Cameron to promise us a referendum on EU membership, and it will be the Brexit Party that ensures we get a clean break Brexit, because if they don't do the right thing, they will electorally be wiped out. I think the European elections showed us that.
Who's next? Anyone else? At the very back there, yes. A cautiously raised hand. Don't be shy.
Still right. Robin Millard from AFP. Mr. Farage, are you going to be standing in the general election, if there is going to be a general election, and where would you stand?
Yes, and to be determined. There will, by the close of play today, you'll be able to see the names of 425 men and women and the constituencies to which they've been allocated. The rest is work in progress. It'll all be completed within the next couple of weeks.
Another arm raised there. Hi.
Thanks. Ben Quinn from The Guardian. Mr. Farage, Boris Johnson appears to have done more than steal some of your language, actually. He's struck up a particularly good relationship with Donald Trump. How much do you worry that he's doing more than stealing your clothes, but he's actually on the way to neutralising you as a threat to the Conservative Party?
Look, the fact that the British Prime Minister at the G7 struck up a good relationship with the President of the United States is something we should all cheer and celebrate. It's a very good thing. There was quite a long period of time in this country when I felt I was just about the only political figure that had anything nice to say about the US President. I'm pleased to see that it's catching. The only thing I would say was that Trump was effusive in his praise of Boris Johnson and his desire to get together and put a trade deal in place as quickly as possible. I was a little bit surprised that Boris Johnson said, well, it will take at least a year, because I think what John Bolton came up with was a brilliant idea. You leave the difficult things to last, but sector by sector, you start making agreements. And there is absolutely no reason why Boris can't get his pork pies into stores in Chicago by Christmas. All we need is the political will.
Pork pies in Chicago. So, any more questions from our friends in the press at the back there? Yes, hi.
Quentin Letts from The Times. How would this non-aggression pact, are you trying to impose conditions on Boris Johnson as far as his candidates go something Anne said earlier suggested that, perhaps. So could you do a non-aggression pact with Boris Johnson if, say, Philip Hammond were still a Conservative candidate?
Well, that's a very good question, and perhaps you better come and stand for us with a question like that. I rather like that. Look, it is. I did say earlier, can you trust the Conservative Party? And the truth of it is, there are too many Philip Hammonds in the Conservative Party. It's why, of course, Boris Johnson cannot do this on his own. The only condition that we would impose upon the Prime Minister in order to have a positive conversation is that he does the right thing, that he keeps his promise, and that do or die, we're leaving the European Union on the 31st of October. And if he makes his mind up that that is the right thing to do, despite the Philip Hammonds, he knows that we would agree with that. And together, as a team, in whatever form of us not standing in areas and maybe them not standing in areas, whatever form that came about in, I have no doubt, given where public opinion is, given how much we in the Brexit Party have helped shift public opinion towards wanting a clean break Brexit, together we'd be unstoppable and Boris would have a huge majority and go down as one of the great heroes in British history. We'd be delighted to make him a hero. We just want our country back. That's what we're here for.
Now, I think there was a question just behind Quentin. The lady, was there? Yes, there we go.
Hi.
Hi.
Eleni Correa from The Times. I just wanted to ask, will you consider not standing candidates in constituencies held by Conservative MPs who are hardline Brexiteers, for example, ERG members? And if not, would you not be splitting the Brexit vote there?
Look, I did mention the ERG when I spoke earlier. I also mentioned the handful of very brave Labour MPs who, having to put up with the most extraordinary levels of abuse, have tried their best to keep true and consistent with the Brexit vote in their constituencies. Look, right at this moment in time, I'm trying to help the Brexit Party go forwards, not backwards. So we're preparing to find candidates for every single seat in the country. After that, we'll work out who the people to do deals with and who the people are not to do deals with. But I can confirm we will be standing against Philip Hammond. Of that, there is no...
I think there was another question in the front row of the press. Someone sort of slicing their throat. Is that signaling you've had enough? Any more questions there, Grace, or are the press?
I think they're done.
I think they're done. Excellent. Perfect. We've answered all the press's question. Great. So we're going to leave, and then I'm going to ask Jake Pugh, the MEP for Yorkshire and the Humber, to come and then take over proceedings. All good? Perfect. Thank you very much indeed. Are you going to use the mic? Right.